What was your school's huge scandal?
Sweat I cat. I left there years ago, but a substitute teacher recently got arrested for trying to coerce a minor male student into sex with him.
Agitated_sir, security guard at my high school was found to have a load of child porn in his home. They also found contact information for 30 or so students at the school, with sexually coded messages. TBH, not sure how I didn't see that coming. He was very friendly and offered candy to the students.
Karisko German School had a trip in class 7 to a small bungalow settlement in southern Saxony. 4 people had to share one room and every house had 2 rooms. Since there were students and teachers from 2 other schools, one group of ours had to sleep in a house with strangers. Our guys were extremely loud and rude, so a teacher from the other school told them to shut up. They felt attacked, and as revenge they shat in a plastic bag and rubbed their feces on the teacher's cabin's window and door handle. All 4 got suspended from future class trips and became pariahs to the rest of us. The shit-throwing monkeys they were called.
Oh, it's really Noah. Oh god, where do I start? Someone burned down the concession stand at our middle school. Nudes scandal at the same middle school staff member. If I get more specific, you'll find it. Had cameras installed in an area where there should not be to peep on students. Teacher has a relationship with a student and another teacher at the same time. Didn't get fired. Teacher looked at NSFW material on a school computer and took down the entire network for 6 school days.
A Chadox one. Dear God, my old school had a lot of those. A teacher that was sent to the hospital because one of the students sprayed her with a product she specifically said she was extremely allergic to. Another teacher had her skull break after some goobs decided it was a great idea to unscrew a door. Never found the culprit though, although if I had to guess it's because our school was what you call a rich kid's school, so I wouldn't be surprised if bribes were used to cover up this entire thing. A philosophy teacher straight up jumped from the first floor in the middle of class. Another one jumped from her home, but the second one regrettably died because of it, both labeled with depression and severe drinking problems. And a few years before I got into the school, there was this girl that accused a teacher of raping her. Although there was no concrete evidence, the teacher was convicted, lost his job, and even now I doubt he did it. That girl was a pathological liar after all. So yeah, not really the best learning environment.
In LOL 7, during middle school, there were a 9th grade boy and an 8th grade girl who would frequent sex in empty classrooms during recess. I lived where middle school education started from 6th to 9th grade. Some people had suspicions, but no one really had proof, so they were never caught. Words finally got out when he finally impregnated the girl and her parents found out. I'm not really sure what happened to the girl later on, but the boy was immediately kicked out of school and was rejected by anyone who were previously friends with him. He then moved to a school really close to where I lived. There were occasions on which I saw him hanging around my neighborhood. He was with a different girl each time. I legit spotted him pulling down a girl's pants on the emergency exit staircase in my apartment building. I guess the dude had really active hormones.
Purple Vein 99. I don't know if it was the huge scandal, but when I found out I was certainly scandalized. Girls' basketball coach was sleeping with arguably the hottest senior at school. My god, he was divine. The coach wasn't all that hot, but all the guys were so into her. She was 27, Anyway, years later I'm working a temp job as an admin assistant and he comes in for an interview as a sales rep. He was still super hot. He also remembered we went to school together, though I was a sophomore when he was a senior. We chit-chatted for a bit while he waited to be called in. Somehow I just blurted out the question. Was he really sleeping with the coach? He laughed and asked me out, said we could talk about it over dinner. I politely declined. I was married by then. He was, too. Wow. Anyway, I don't know if he got the job cause I stopped working there not too long after.
SKZ740141 was my English teacher. She moved to a new school, not fired, just moved, God bless the 80s, after she was caught having sex with one of the female students in the book storeroom. I got in trouble for asking if anyone wiped down the books. Seemed a fair question to me. The second one was the teacher who started dating a senior the day after graduation. They both swore nothing happened while she was a student. They moved in together 2 weeks later. Sure, we believe you that nothing happened while she was a student.
Ajax 6677. This event actually inspired a bit of the movie Election, with Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick. Unmarried pregnant girl was elected homecoming queen in our mid-sized Midwestern town in the 90s. It made national news because they tried to deny her the crown and burned all the ballots to cover their tracks. The principal resigned and 3 others were disciplined over it. I'm actually impressed that the school superintendent fought for her side.
Girlfriend thief. We had to leave in the middle of class, cause some dude threatened with a bomb that was going to explode. Nobody knew where except they were told it was at the school. So when we got evacuated to a safer place, the principal told about the situation and we had to call our parents to get us. I believe this was in 6th grade. I was standing in the line of my class. Some girls were crying. At the moment we were told to go home, some 7th graders boys were standing in a circle hugging, yelling yes no math and being the happiest in the world at the moment. Of course the principal saw this and got really mad. I was satisfied of their stupidity. DL, doctor thought I was getting blown up and 7th graders skipped math class.
New random nickname. Our history teacher in high school in Poland was speaking openly about his grandfather's relations with Schutzstaffel. There was even one situation this guy came in his grandfather's uniform, SS, completely drunk, started teaching us about WWII from his ideological perspective. Should mention here his infatuation towards my classmate, blonde girl with blue eyes, described by him as perfect example of beauty. Everything about this guy was so Nazi.
Glala not teacher got the shits with one of the girls talking while we were walking between classrooms. Threw her so hard against the lockers her teeth didn't just go through her bottom lip, she cut her bottom lip clean off.
West 313. Okay, so my high school has a couple, only one is actually related to the school. The other 2 involve alumni. First one happened in the early 2000s. A male teacher got intimately involved with a female student in late 01. Around the summer of 02, a friend of the student takes her to the police because the teacher had been beating her. He basically gets away with it because she is afraid to reveal him as her attacker. A few months later, the school year has started at this point. I'm now UHS sophomore at the time. She ends up dead from strangulation and stab wounds to the throat. He gets life in prison, later commits suicide in his cell. What's crazy, and doesn't really come out until after all this, is that a former girlfriend comes forward and tells that he used to beat and choke her as well. This came out during the trial. This incident is before he becomes a teacher, and he ended up lying on his application to the school district, specifically about the length of his probation from this conviction, likely assuming that he would have not gotten the job if he was completely honest. The school district ends up getting sued because they don't do a thorough check of this guy before bringing him on.
2. This was a couple of years ago. A guy I went to high school with, and a few others, are arrested as part of a pretty sizable bust from an anonymous tip regarding possible narcotic activity. To quote, "The police seized more than 14,500 oxycodone pills, 2,000 MDMA pills, nearly a pound of psilocybin, 1.5 pounds of cocaine, 16.5 grams of methamphetamine, 85 Xanax pills, and 4 pounds of ketamine, along with a loaded gun and about $60,000 in cash. I'm unsure of what the sentence for this was, but of course it was pretty big news amongst the alumni once it got out. 3. Not as big as the other 2. But there is a girl who was a freshman when I was a senior, and she is a well-known-ish porn star now. I never knew her personally, and didn't know until well after graduating, but still interesting.
_6 Varsagad 615. When I was in high school, the big scandal was a female teacher who was dating male students who varied in ages from 15 to 19. Even dated a former student until someone filmed them together. There were some pedophile teachers, a principal fired for drinking on the job, an Irish-born teacher who glorified the IRA, and a 15-year-old student who was dating a 40-something-year-old divorce math tutor. There were a few other scandals. After I graduated, a much bigger scandal erupted. A student I knew committed suicide because a coach received some text messages and went after the student. It's turned into a local tragedy with people taking sides for the deceased student or the coach. I returned to the town being very confused.
Dioxyacid. Over 20 years ago, a kid from my class and several underclassmen stole a capuchin monkey from a local zoo. They had it for over a week and it was severely ill by the time authorities recovered it. What was really sad was the creature was on loan from another zoo for reproductive reasons and later had to be euthanized. The boys caught 9 kinds of hell from authorities. The kid from my class was extricated to the other state to face animal abuse charges and grand theft and damage to government property. He had just turned 18 the day before he was arrested. By the end of our school year, he was sent to prison for 5 years. Was killed in prison 3 weeks before his scheduled parole release.